This week on Jerusalem Dateline, 1 year after the Abraham Accords, relations are blossoming while the threat of Iran is growing. And the Taliban is gaining ground as U.S. troops leave Afghanistan. What will it mean for Israel and the Middle East? Plus, the prophetic significance of the Abraham Accords. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl, filling in for Chris Mitchell. Mid-August marks the one-year anniversary of a peace deal much of the world never saw coming. The Abraham Accords, initially involving Israel and the United Arab Emirates, soon opened other doors. Here's a look at the historic creation and what lies ahead. When Israel and the UAE normalized relations, it became the first peace agreement between the Jewish state and an Arab state in 26 years. Within 4 months, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco also signed on to the Abraham Accords.
It is very rare that there's an opportunity for a win-win that can be transformational, not just for a country, but for a region. And the Abraham Accords is that transformational moment in history.
What makes these agreements different is the focus on including business, tourism, education, and research between the countries. That's helped open the doors to nearly $2 billion worth of business deals.
This has been a very unique opportunity between UAE and Israel to come with an agreement of peace and tolerance together.
What this has done is realign the Middle East between countries that want peace and prosperity and countries that don't, and countries that want to continue to battle age-old conflicts and don't care about their people as much as they should.
Jerusalem Deputy Mayor Fleur Hassan Nahum and Abdallah Bakr worked together on the UAE-Israel Business Council.
The Abrahamic Accords, it's not about the Jews and the Muslims. It's also have other nationalities, other religions that they're involved into this, because we all live together.
We hope that the momentum that is created will be enough for other countries to join the alliance of the good countries in the Middle East.
That kind of thinking led to an agreement this week between the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs and Bahrain's leading research institute. In light of Iran's recent attacks on ships, it aims to build a coalition of Abraham Accords countries and others in the region.
When people of similar sentiments in the Middle East work together and expose what they are doing across our region and suggest a different path, we can actually win that war of ideas.
When it comes to the Accords, the United States played a major role, including players like Aryeh Lightstone, former advisor to the U.S. ambassador to Israel.
There was an artificial line dividing Israel and other nations in the region and beyond, and it just didn't make sense.
Lightstone says the U.S. brought allies together, erasing unnatural divides and trying to remove the hurts.
Look at the places that are pillars of hope and light for the region. Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and obviously the State of Israel. When they can work together, it's going to drive more opportunity for more people in the region.
Given the recent leadership changes in the U.S. and Israel, some feared the Accords might not last.
The Abraham Accords and peace in general is not a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It's an American thing. And America belongs steering this car in order to gain this transformation, and we should be there.
You know, the Americans did the fantastic thing of creating the circumstances for this peace and pushing us all together. But now that it's been signed, everybody's 100% committed, and now it's got its own legs.
Lightstone's advice to those on the outside is to continue to pray.
They're called Abraham for a reason. This is the reunification of Abraham's children. This was brought together by the United States of America, who saw the region clearly, embraced our friends, and made very clear demands of our enemies.
Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid traveled to Morocco in the first trip of its kind since 2003. It comes less than a year after they agreed to normalize relations as part of the Abraham Accords. The foreign ministers of the countries signed 3 accords aimed at strengthening ties in tourism, economy and trade, and diplomatic cooperation. While there, Lapid also opened Israel's diplomatic mission in the capital of Rabat. He also said the two countries agreed to upgrade to full embassies in both countries and open direct flights on Royal Air Morocco to Israel. A flurry of diplomatic activity surrounds Jerusalem, but while much of it has been about peace and celebrating the fruits of the Abraham Accords, the common threat of Iran looms large. Bahrain's Undersecretary for Foreign Relations said he was in Israel to talk about peace. He signed accords with 3 Israeli think tanks, but he told the Jerusalem Post that Israel and Bahrain are collaborating on the Iran threat. Earlier, he said the JCPOA has caused more instigation and extremism in many different regions across the Middle East. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett met with CIA Director William Burns. The visit comes after Iran has been accused of attacking ships in the Gulf of Oman, and its Lebanese proxy Hezbollah fired rockets at Israel. A statement from Bennett's office said the two discussed tightening intelligence and security cooperation, as well as the situation in the Middle East with an emphasis on Iran. And Defense Minister Benny Gantz, who also met with the CIA director, toured the northern border with Lebanon following the Hezbollah rocket attacks on the area. Gantz said the crisis in Lebanon is devastating and Israel is ready to help, but Israel won't allow the tragedy to cross the border.
We are all well aware of Hezbollah's attempts to exploit the situation at the expense of the safety and livelihoods of Lebanese citizens under the direct influence of Iran.
Former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren, says Hezbollah is taking advantage of the situation.
Israel's response to an attack by Hezbollah has always been to then respond against Lebanon, against the host country, by hitting its utilities, hitting its gas lines, hitting its airport, closing down its electricity. But Israel can't bomb Lebanon back to the Stone Age anymore because Lebanon is, in fact, in the Stone Age right now. And were Israel to attack Lebanon now, we would be condemned internationally.
Oren says Israel needs to go after what he called the head of the snake.
I detest this notion that we have to play by Iran's game. Iran has proxies like Hamas, like Hezbollah. They fire rockets at us. We fire rockets back at the proxies. I think it's about time we start striking back at the boss. Striking Iran's interests, its oil refineries, striking where we have to strike.
Gantz says Iran is the greatest regional threat and the world cannot allow it to obtain nuclear weapons.
We will continue to defend ourselves against the Iranian attempt to become an existential threat of the state of Israel and to transfer advanced munitions to its proxies on our borders. We will operate in the time and place and via the means that we will determine.
Coming up, radical Taliban gains ground as U.S. troops pull out of Afghanistan. What will it mean for Israel and the Middle East?
It is the most important archaeological site. Nevertheless, it has never been excavated.
An almost impossible task.
Temple Mount was the largest religious compound in the ancient world.
It is the most politicized piece of real estate in the world.
Leads to an improbable find.
There is an ancient road, also 2,000 years old.
That is the building which is referred to in the New Testament.
That is confirming the stories of the Bible.
Where did Jesus walk? There's no question he walked on these steps.
You can see it. There's no way to refute that.
They existed. They walked here. They talked here.
See the evidence left by an ancient witness.
He lived there. He saw it. He knew the details.
It's like the crown of our discoveries.
May cause a rewriting of the history of the Temple Mount.
And discover what was. Written in stone, Secrets of the Temple. Get your copy today for a gift of any dollar amount. Available now.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
The Bible tells us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. In CBN's free guide, 10 Ways You Can Pray for Israel, you'll learn spiritual lessons from Israel's patriarchs, prophets, and beloved New Testament leaders, while also discovering how you can pray for Israel today. Get your free copy. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/pray for Israel.
Just when everyone in the region was counting on a strong America, U.S. troops are pulling out of Afghanistan after nearly 20 years, and the scene is not good. As CBN News senior reporter Dale Hurd tells us, radical Taliban fighters are taking over provincial capitals and the countryside at an alarming rate, as the Afghani military seems unable to stop them.
Another key city fell to the Taliban Sunday as American-trained government forces continue to collapse and surrender. Now the U.S. Embassy is urging all Americans to leave the country immediately. Taliban fighters seized the strategic capital of northern Afghanistan's Kunduz province Sunday, the fourth provincial capital to fall to the Taliban in less than a week. The swift advances come as U.S. and NATO troops complete their pullout after nearly 2 decades in the country. Thousands of Afghan civilians have died in the fighting. This woman says, "My husband was martyred, and then we left our village. My niece's husband was also martyred." Some Taliban fighters are already secretly inside the capital of Kabul, waging an assassination campaign. The director of the government media center was shot and killed Friday, just days after an assassination attempt on the defense minister. After the U.S. spent billions of dollars training and shoring up Afghan forces, several pro-government commanders have surrendered to the Taliban without a fight. Similar scenes happened when the U.S. pulled out of Iraq in 2008. Eventually, the rise of the ISIS terror group forced the U.S. to return. The former U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, Ryan Crocker, told ABC he still expects a strong defense from pro-government forces in the large cities, but that the U.S. must speed up efforts to get Afghans who helped American forces, like translators, out of the country.
What needs to be done right now is to ramp up the evacuation, get more flights in faster.
The Taliban will kill everybody, and they will torture them in front of their family and kill them.
Former missionary to Afghanistan and author John Weaver says Muslim converts to Christianity are in special danger.
There are a few thousand Muslim background believers who are following Jesus now. They love Jesus. It's a small group type of a venue. It is slowly spreading, but it is very dangerous, very difficult for them.
In a clear sign of panic from Washington, the U.S. dispatched B-52 bombers and Spectre gunships to Afghanistan Friday to try to hold the Taliban at bay, killing as many as 500 of the fighters. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
As we've seen, the situation in Afghanistan is dire. Britain's defense minister said he thinks al-Qaeda could even return. Take a look at what experts in Israel are saying. The U.S. pullout from Afghanistan is sending the wrong message to the Middle East and others like China, Russia, Iran, and Turkey.
The fact that the United States is leaving will empower groups like the Taliban or other extremists. It will also empower a lot of America's, let's say, adversaries or enemies or countries that want to take advantage of the decline of America a bit in the region.
The message being that America is withdrawing, that America is abandoning its allies, that America is leaving hundreds of thousands of civilians, particularly women civilians in Afghanistan, to their fate at the hands of the Taliban. If anything, America thinks that you can do that without serious geopolitical and strategic ramifications around the world, they're kidding themselves.
Earlier this year, President Biden announced that the U.S. would withdraw its troops from Afghanistan by the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on the U.S. Since then, the Taliban has taken over many regional capitals and assassinated a number of Afghani government officials. An added element, according to author Seth Frantzman, is how the Taliban was welcomed in other countries long before the pullout.
The Taliban is ostensibly a terror army, and yet the Taliban was being hosted by China, Russia, Qatar, Turkey. I mean, all these different places were kind of open to talking to them. And I think what happens when the international community, let's say, gives a red carpet or whitewashes these types of groups, I think that's concerning to Israel.
Middle East expert Michael Oren says it will embolden others outside the region, too.
I think that China will make conclusions about its position in the South China Sea vis-a-vis Taiwan, the Russians about their position in the Middle East and Eastern Europe and Ukraine. I think that it is human nature when people see a formerly very strong person withdrawing, they see a vacuum. And vacuums, are abhorred by nature, but also by international relations, and they will fill up these vacuums.
Meanwhile, as the Taliban gobbles up ground, many are asking what happened to the military mission and billions spent training and beefing up Afghan security forces. Up next, an Israeli technology that makes water out of air and friends out of enemies.
Now, for a limited time, you can get 5 of CBN's critically acclaimed documentaries. Experience the rebirth of the modern state of Israel.
The historic bonds between the Jewish people and the land of Israel cannot be broken.
Relive the battle for Jerusalem in the Six-Day War.
Jerusalem is yours, forever.
Discover how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
When people need us, we volunteer and we come and help.
Explore the world of Israeli technological innovation.
We're people of dreams. God gives us dreams. And that's really the roots, I think, of much of our innovation.
And understand the biggest land dispute in history.
Many Palestinian Arabs claim that the Jews stole Arab land. But is that the real story?
This exclusive Israel DVD collection can be yours for a gift of $29.99 or more. Call now or go online to get your Israel DVD bundle, which includes streaming access.
Here, we're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship, dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership. And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us regent.
As we've heard, one of the fruits of the Abraham Accords has been amazing business opportunities. Here's a story we did a couple of months ago after a trip to Abu Dhabi about a company that's making water out of air. It may seem far-fetched, but an Israeli company has become a world leader in this groundbreaking technology. It's a vision to provide everyone with clean and safe drinking water. This vision is also helping strengthen those ties between the Jewish state and the Arab world. Abu Dhabi is a modern jewel in the Middle East and capital of the United Arab Emirates. Located on the Persian Gulf, you might think it has plenty of water, but there's a problem.
I'm not talking just about the ocean that you see outside. I'm talking about the groundwater. It's all very, very salty and undrinkable.
Last year, the UAE became the first Arab state in more than 25 years to make peace with Israel when it signed on to the Abraham Accords. That opened the door for WaterGen.
The second I heard and saw that the Abraham Accords were signed, I dropped everything I was dealing with and went directly to the UAE in order to strengthen the accords.
Dr. Michael Mirilashvili is owner and president of WaterGen, which makes water out of air. Now that technology is helping make friends out of former enemies.
We started here almost 6 months ago, and today our machines installed all over Abu Dhabi.
Temperatures in Abu Dhabi regularly soar to 100 degrees and above, and that's hot. But this WaterGen machine here in the Al Fayed Park gives water and refreshment to those who come to enjoy and play.
The United Arab Emirates is very, very similar to Israel because it's a relatively young country that is located in the middle of the desert.
Now WaterGen and the Emirati company Al Dakra Group have signed a landmark agreement for a water research program.
We opened a water research institute in the UAE, which is a sub-institute from Tel Aviv University in Israel, named after my father, Moshe Mirilashvili. It helps us at WaterGen to produce a formula for the best premium water in the world, which will be the tastiest, the cleanest, and the healthiest in the world.
Ben Gurion University of the Negev is also involved. President Daniel Chamovitz says the goal is to combine research on water and agriculture.
What we're doing with WaterGen is bringing these two institutes together such that with water purified through WaterGen from the air can then be used to funnel into agricultural systems to provide horticulture in desert urban settings.
Another major announcement came with laying the cornerstone for a WaterGen production facility in the UAE. It will provide products here for other Gulf states and Africa.
They have a dream. Also, it's our dream and vision that the Abraham Accords impact not only the Middle East, but the entire world and demonstrate that peace, cooperation, and mutual respect are much more beneficial than animosity.
While 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, only half of 1% is fresh water. More than 2 billion people don't have access to safe drinking water. That's where WaterGen comes in.
My main goal is that every person in the world could afford to use our machines and have the best drinking water.
WaterGen co-CEO Michael Ruthman explains how WaterGen works.
For the last 100 years, people were using a very, very simple mechanism called the heat exchanger in order to cool air. When the air is reaching a dew point temperature, the humidity is separated and you get water.
Company scientists work to reinvent the heat exchanger.
Now, with this revolutionary patented new heat exchanger, we can extract up to 5 times more water per 1 kilowatt of energy than any other technology on the market.
Their biggest machine makes some 1,300 to nearly 1,600 gallons a day.
We're going to introduce bigger machines in the future, but factories know, because the whole idea here is about decentralization. The whole idea is to place as many small machines or medium machines all around the place and to create the water when you consume it.
That includes a small genie machine for the home and even for cars to provide running water while you drive. Already in more than 80 countries, WaterGen has also placed machines in the Gaza Strip powered by solar panels. Ambassador Eitan Naeh, head of mission in Abu Dhabi, tells CBN News what makes this partnership so strategically important.
What we see around WaterGen is that it defines the reason why the United Arab Emirates wanted to have such relationships in the first place with Israel, which is about what we can give each other, technology and scale up.
Naeh adds why that combination leads to a strong synergy.
It's really a symbol of our relationship. We create water from the air. We create relationships. We create contacts. We create business and trade out of animosity or indifference before. Friends out of enemies. So this is what we're heading for, hopefully.
Miri Lashvili says a key part of the decision is that the UAE didn't choose WaterGen just because it's Israeli.
They tested a lot of companies and compared, and they realized that we had an edge over everyone else. They told us, no one can even compete with you.
He says that's led to a stronger partnership with very good people.
When one has good and serious intentions, the Almighty always lends his help.
Still ahead, are the Abraham Accords a sign of prophecy unfolding?
Thank you for watching Jerusalem Dateline. We're committed to providing you with unbiased reporting from the Holy Land. Through weekly broadcasts, podcasts, and online media, our vision is to reach millions around the globe with the true story of what's happening in Israel and the Middle East, all from a biblical and prophetic perspective. This is a big vision and is only made possible by the generous support of people like you.
Call us toll-free at 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/Jerusalem Dateline and make a donation that will help spread the light of truth about Israel throughout the world.
Ready, set,
Gizmo Go!
Today is Rotonicon!
But none of you are as excited as me!
Plans don't always go as expected.
Hi, Professor!
I have a very special job for you, and I need it done today.
Today?
Gizmo Go is created especially for younger children, teaching core biblical values in a way they'll understand.
Fantastic!
God wants us to be obedient. He wants us to obey Him. He wants us to obey our parents and the people that love us.
Join the Superbook Club and get Gizmo Go, The Quantum Hotel, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25. Each DVD contains a Bible-based Gizmo Go show, a karaoke version of an original song, and much, much more. Join Gizmo, Tina, and their robot friends for all new Superbook adventures, lessons, and fun.
We're all pretty excited.
Gizmo Go, a great new way for young children to discover God's truths.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today. Spice up your summer with these delicious international recipes. Introducing Operation Blessing's free light and lean recipe book. It's filled with flavors your whole family will enjoy. Plus, you'll learn about Operation Blessing's work, bringing nutritious food, clean water, and medical care to millions in need. Call 1-800-730-BLESS or go to ob.org/summer to get your free light and lean recipe book right now.
The Abraham Accords are named after the biblical patriarch Abraham as a symbol of uniting his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, and their descendants. But is there a prophetic significance? When the Accords first unfolded, author Joel Rosenberg explained to CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell how he believes the Accords fit into prophecy.
We watch in the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38, 39, what's known as the eschatological future war of Gog and Magog, is the Arab states being very calm and quiet towards Israel. Israel reconstructed, peaceful, prosperous, calm, secure, and then a Russian-Iranian-Turkish alliance forming against Israel.
The Bible talks about a confederation of nations, including Put, Cush, Persia, Magog, Gomer, and Tubal coming against Israel.
Now, I'm not saying the war of Gog and Magog is imminent. I'm saying is the trend lines of peace in the Middle East with a Russian-Iranian-Turkish axis. This is exactly where we're heading. This is the trajectory, and it's something that should cause all Christians to watch carefully and to continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
President Erdogan and Iran both have their sights set on Jerusalem. Erdogan said recently he wants to liberate the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and Iran wants to conquer the Holy City. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
It's important to continue to pray for the peace of the region, for the people and the situation in Afghanistan, and, as the Bible tells us, for the peace of Jerusalem. Well, that's all for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can also access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. And don't forget to sign up for our email blasts so you can continue to receive all of our exciting CBN content. I'm Julie Stahl. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.